Hello everyone, I'm home. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to share with you some thrifted items and some things that I got from my friend who passed away. I'm sitting here having a bad girl breakfast. I've been naughty. I had a little Debbie the other day and I'm diabetic, so I'm trying to have a healthy breakfast, and this is pretty much what it amounts to. And I wanted to show you a few things that I picked up this week. I always pick up little birds. If I find a pretty little bird that is made of resin or ceramic or just a pretty little bird that I like, I pick them up. And I found these for 99 cents a piece and I couldn't pass them up. I had this little sprig of faux rosemary. I think that's what it is. And I put it in one of my little tarnished silver compote dishes that stands up on legs. And I put one of the little birds in it, and he's so sweet. And then I put the other bird in. One looks up and one looks down. Then I started tucking in some little berries and some of my roses from my garden. But I just thought the colors on it were just beautiful. They're gold and gray, and they've got the prettiest little eyes. And I love to watch my birds outside, and I like to have a little bird inside. They just give me a happy feeling to see their little faces looking up at me. So I set him on my table, and he's going to be my spring decor for now. And out of the free bin the other day, I got this little tarnished silver creamer that was all by itself, and I'll use it for something. I'm not sure what yet. I thought about making a pincushion out of it because I need another one. Then at the thrift store the other day, they had 75% off all their Christmas. And I got this towel because I thought it was so pretty. It's got Santa and it's got some deer on it. But what I liked about it was the little button and the crocheted top that you can attach to your stove. My mom used to make those, and they're so handy. You don't have to worry about it falling off. And I thought he'd be pretty for next year, and I'll stick him in my Christmas tote. And then I got this big metal sign. I think it was $3, so whatever 75% off is. And it was so pretty, and it had a few little dings and scratches and a little rust, which is right up my alley. I like that a lot. And then I found this little Christmas Putz house in red. I thought it was so sweet. And I think it was only 50 cents, so it ended up being 6 cents. And then I found this. I saw this and I just was drawn to it. It was only 50 cents, and some lady has crocheted this and made it to where it wrapped around an aluminum pie dish. I guess it was some kind of decoration. They had it in with the Christmas stuff, so I thought it was so sweet. And it had a little note inside that said, "Handmade by Grandma Hawkins, year unknown." And I thought of all the work she did on that. It's well worth it for me to buy it. And like I said, it was 50 cents, so it cost about 6 cents. And I can't decide if I want to take it off of that little well, guys, I can't talk. Pie tin, or if I want to leave it on there. She's done a beautiful job with the crochet, with the lighter thread, and it's just beautiful. And I ended up putting it on I have a little chair in my kitchen that has an old plate tucked up on a bowl, a wooden bowl, and I just set it up there for now, and I'll put it in with my Christmas stuff. But I just thought it was so sweet, and she really put a lot of effort into it, and I don't know who gave it to the thrift store, but I was happy to take ownership of it, and I'll take good care of it. And I think I'm just going to leave it on that little pie tin. And then I found a little primitive looking bear. It says 1829 on the tag, and he was so sweet. And I don't usually collect bears or anything. I have a couple downstairs with my primitive stuff, but I thought for the price he was awful sweet, so I brought him home. He had a little bell on him, and he smelled like cinnamon, so he might have came out of a store. Then I bought this sad little rabbit. He's about 14 inches tall, and he's missing almost all of his paint, and he was only $1, so he was like a quarter. And his paint doesn't bother me at all. I'll probably spray paint him a dark chocolate brown and make him look like a big chocolate bunny, and he'll be fine. And then I found these two little miniature rabbits that look like they're candy wrapped in foil paper, and they ended up being 6 cents a piece as well. And I kind of like them. I'll probably take the bows off and put a different bow on them and set them around for Easter. And they look real cute with this one. I think he was like them. He had the foil on him, but it's just all flaked off. So I'll fix him up and it'll be fine. Then I found these one bag in a little box of Easter eggs. And the reason I bought them is because of the little chalk eggs. I really like those kind to put into wooden bowls and to sit around with my primitive stuff like this one. And the little glass one, I can hang it on my little Easter tree. And there was this little one with a little bunny on it. And there were some that I didn't care for, and I'll just toss those. But I like to paint some of my eggs to look like kind of a chalky, primitive design. And then there was some fabric eggs in there, which I wasn't real crazy about. But I may tuck them into my little tree. I haven't decided yet. But I got quite a few eggs. And then there was this little carton of 6 eggs that are already chalky, and they don't look like the eggs that you break apart. So I'll put those in my bowls. Then they had a whole bunch of boxes of the Christmas lights, and the only reason I bought one box was because they were 75% off, and you can always use an extra strand. You'll have one that doesn't work, so I bought those. Now I want to get back into some of the gifts that I got from my friend whose mother passed away. That was my good friend. She had these 2 boxes in the tote, and they're beautiful. I had seen them at my friend's house many times. They've got the red transferware design on them. They're red on the outside. They have the little textured border around the edge of the box. They're just beautiful. She always had them stacked on a little shelf. And this little round one was so pretty. And so I set them on my china cabinet on some dishes until I decide where I'll put them. But one of them was kind of heavy, and I opened it, and they had tucked some more Santa Clauses in there. There were 4. 2 of them matched and the other 2 didn't, but she was like me. She liked the metal look of the Santas, the pewter look, and we both liked the ice cream molds and the molds, the chocolate molds. So I was real tickled to get these. So they'll go into my Santa Claus box. And then I was looking through my kitchen. If anyone asks me, how many cookbooks do you have? I would probably tell them I have at least 75 to 100. I've got so many. They're tucked all over my kitchen on shelves. I've got a bookcase with a bunch in them. I use all of these. These aren't just for looks. Sometimes I'll put them on an easel and set them around in my kitchen. But I use them. I use every one of them, and I don't know which one I would get rid of if someone held a gun to my head and said, you got to get rid of a few of these cookbooks. I don't know which one I would let go of. And of course I have my favorites, but I use them and I love them, and I try not to buy any that I don't think I'll use or love. So as I was going through the totes that my friend gave me, she gave me some of her mother's cookbooks, and her mother had a lot, my friend. She had a lot of cookbooks, and I was tickled to get them, and I looked through them briefly there at the house, and then when I got home, I stacked them next to my chair, and I started going through them. And these are just some that, I thrift most of my cookbooks, and of course, I just dropped something. I piled them all up. I decided to gather them all up and count them up to see how many I actually had, and I didn't have as many as I thought. I only had about 34, 37. I kind of lost track, but I stacked up the ones that they had given me, which were Marge Clark's cookbooks, and I was real tickled to get those. Now, this is a little photo album that's mine that I put recipes in that the ladies in the beauty shop had given me through the years, and they're all written out by the women who gave them to me, and they're good friends of mine, and I was real happy to put them in this little photo album and just keep those in that little book. And this is an oatmeal cake by my grandma, and my friend Faye, she used to make what she called icing, chocolate icing, and this was the kind that they used to use at the school on the chocolate sheet cakes. And I don't know if you guys remember collecting Campbell soup labels, but when I was real little in school, we collected them, and my mom would save me bunches of them, and I'd take them to school and think, man, I'm going to win the contest. And Gary Sewell beat me every year because his grandma owned a restaurant and used a lot of soup, and he would bring in handfuls of Campbell soup labels. Well, it's hard for me not to cut the labels off now when I open a can of Campbell's anything. So I save them and put them in my cookbooks. Isn't that silly? That was so long ago, but it's just a thing. And now you don't save the whole label. I think you just save the little, the little mark at the bottom, but I save them. Gary Sewell's not going to beat me anymore. Anyway, with Marge Clark's books, I have some I've thrifted. And then they gave me my friend's book, and then my friend had given me her copy of Holly's book from Grandma's Table, And I was so tickled to get it because mine's looking kind of bad because I've used it so much, and it's got some spots on it, and the pages are getting really worn. And I thought, oh, good, I've got a good clean copy now. Well, I didn't. My friend's copy was just like mine. She had used it so much that it had some damage, but they're both still in pretty good shape. And I know which one's mine because Holly had written me a little note inside mine. But when I said to my friend, why are you giving me this? Don't you need it? And she said, I've got the recipes memorized that I use, and I don't cook as much, and I want you to have it. So she gave it to me. And Holly has a lot of recipes in that book, and they're all good. And one of these days I'm going to ask her if I can share my husband's favorite one out of that book, and I'm sure she'll let me, and you guys will love it. So I have 2 of Holly's books now, and I have several copies of Marge Clark's books, and I'm happy to have them because you got to understand, back when they brought these books out, I sold them in my beauty shop, Holly's book. I sold a lot of them, and my women would buy the book for themselves. Then they would buy one for their daughter and their granddaughters and future people that might be married into the family. And everybody around our area has these books. I mean, we all have them. But I was really tickled to be getting another edition because I'm always afraid something will happen to mine or I'll wear them out. This is Marge Clark's It's About Time cookbook. I had it, but when they gave me their copy, I was like, really, you're giving me those? And she said, well, we have them because my friend had bought her daughters and her granddaughters some. So everybody's got these books, but I'm tickled to have more. And Marge's books are just beautiful, and I've never made anything out of any of her books, nor Holly's book, that weren't good. They're excellent recipes. You can't go wrong. So Marge dealt with a lot of herbs and spices, and I didn't back then, but now I do because she taught us how to use them right. And I liked the way my friend had went through the book and marked the recipes that she really liked. And she had told me through the years, hey, did you ever try this one? And I'd say, no, but I will. And it's just a thing in our community. Everybody, if the younger people don't have this book, they want it. So if I find them at thrift stores, I pick them up and I resell them. And then this was another book they gave me. It was one of Marge's books with her friend Ann Harrison, who lives she was from about 10 miles away from us. And those 2 ladies could just write up a big book. And this is a big book. It's a big binder type book. And the recipes were typed out and printed by someone local and put in this book. I think this was one of their first ones. And I had this book at one time, and I loaned it to someone and never got it back. So I'm happy to have that one back. So now I can say I've got all of Marge's books and duplicates of some of them. So I was really happy. But this is a big book, and I go through it a lot. And I loved going through them and seeing what my friend she'd made notes. And sometimes she'd write, this one isn't good. But it wasn't in Marge's book. It was in another cookbook that they gave me. She just marked it out and said, this one's not good. Don't do this one. But then Marge had another book called The Best of Times. And it's really leaning into the herbs and spices. And I've not made a lot out of this book, but the ones that I've used, these recipes are really good. And it's such a beautiful book. She always had a way of designing the books that just made you want to just sit down and look at them. And I did the other night. I sat down and I went through my stack of books and looked at every page. And I like this book because it's such a pretty green color. I can display it looking like that, which I like to do on an easel or something. But it also has the cover, so I can have the cover on one and have the cover off of another and have it on an easel. And I just can't tell you how happy I am that they gave me these books. It made me really happy. And inside the books, like I said, she used the prettiest font and she used the prettiest pictures. And the recipes, you just look up your favorite spices and you'll find herbs and spice recipes. So on my bookshelf, I have 4 Marge Clark Christmas cookbooks, but that's okay because I'm deathly afraid that I'll lose them and not be able to find another one. And you can go on Amazon and thriftedbooks.com and find these books. I actually found the one that I just previously showed you about the herbs and spices for $6. Now, my friend and I, on Thrifted Books, My friend and I, we used to drive around in the country and look at old barns and old houses, and she'd tell me stories. And she had told me this story many, many times, and as she got older, she'd forget she told me, and I'd always say, she'd say, did I ever tell you about? And I'd say, yeah, I think so, but go ahead and tell me again, because I loved this story. She told me that when her and her husband lived in town in this little old house that she loved before they moved into the one she had recently, she said there was an old couple that lived next door to them, and she said their house was real old and brittle, looked like it could burn down any minute, and she would take food over to them, and she said the house was just absolutely stuffed with things. And this was back in the 60s. And she said one day they've died, the couple died, and one day her husband came home and he said, I bought the house next door. What for? And he said, I'm going to tear it down, burn it, and we're going to clear that lot so the kids can play. And she said, he told her to go over there and get anything out of that house she wanted because they were going to burn it down. So she and her little daughter go over there, and she said there was just so much old stuff, and she wasn't into that stuff then. She said, I just kind of hurried up and grabbed something, and I saw this cookbook that I thought was clean and nice. It looked like new. I thought, well, I'll just take that cookbook. And she said, years later, so John burnt the house down. It's gone. I'll tell you where it's at. And she took me up there, and she said, since then, since I've liked old things, I can't get that off my mind. How much old stuff, treasures that I probably burned up in that house. She said, Marcy, it was old stuff in 1960. So can you imagine how old that stuff was and how much I would love to have it now? And she told me this story so many times, and I love to hear it because that was just a fun story. So I'm driving around the other day looking at old houses, and I saw this one with a keyhole window I thought was so pretty. And I went home and I sat down and started looking through the rest of my books, and this one book popped up, and it was Betty Crocker's Picture Cookbook. And I looked it up, and this is a 1950s edition, and it said this was one of the most popular cookbooks ever written. And it told a really neat story about it. You should look it up. It's a popular one. And this one was from 1950, and it's really worn. Now, she said it was like new when she got it. And it's really worn now. And so I'm looking at this book, and I'm thinking, it's worn. And she told me that the book that she got out of that house was like new. So this couldn't be that book, could it? Because my friend wouldn't have worn this book out. And I just went through it and looked at the pages real quick, and I loved how the pages were used. You know, they had some food stains on them, and they were ruffled a little bit, and you could tell this book had been used. And look at the pretty dishes that are shown in it. Those are the kind I look for in thrift stores now. The pretty ironstone and with transferware patterns on them. You know how I love that kind of thing. And so I'm flipping through the book real quick, and I looked at the back, and it was so pretty, and I thought, oh, I bet my friend really loved the back of that book because it's red and white. And I was looking it over and looking through the pages, and I thought, wouldn't that be something if this was the book she got out of that old lady's house? But my friend had so many cookbooks, I'm sure this wasn't it. I opened the book, and it had this pretty deep red cover, and I turned the page, and the very first page, guys, had the story written by my friend. I could not believe it. This is the lady's book that she had told me the story about. Inside it says, from the house of George and Madeline Hausman, we bought in 1960s. I have used this book so much, it was like new. We burned the old house down, and the kids had so much fun playing on the lot after we got the house down and cleaned up. Connie and I found this book inside the house. We didn't look around very long, probably missed a lot of treasures. Now, I don't know when she wrote that, but she has written that sometime in the last 60 years so that whoever ended up with that book would know the story of George and Madeline Hausman. And I think she told me they didn't have any children. But all through the book, there's all kinds of little notes of the favorite things that she liked out of her recipe books. And in this book, Madeline Hausman's book, she had written that she liked this recipe. You don't have to mash the potatoes or nothing. It's very easy. And all through the book, she had marked what she used. And she told me she used it many, many times. So cookbooks, guys, they can hold legacies just as much as anything else. I just thought it was such an interesting story, and I wanted to share that with you guys. And to think that my friend nourished her family with much delight with those recipes for over 60 years. And now I'll use it, and hopefully future generations of mine, maybe I'll give it to my daughters-in-law someday and my grandkids. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. I love you guys from the bottom of my heart, and I can't wait to see you again.